Now, the company at the center of the U.S.-China trade war, Huawei, is talking to Yahoo Finance. In an exclusive interview at the company's headquarters in China, the founder and CEO of Huawei sat down with Akiko Fujita to address national security issues and its relationship with Google. And Akiko joins us now. Welcome back.
Thank you.
From your trip to China. Very good. Good interview.
Yeah, I mean, this was an extensive conversation. We had 90 minutes sit down with the CEO and founder of Huawei. And, you know, Ren Zhengfei has really taken a lot of hits since his company was added to the entity list back in May. Their smartphone sales alone dropped 40% in that first month. But he's made it very clear that this company is in it for the long haul. One of the questions I asked him, though, was the one that has plagued this company for years now, and that is one of intellectual property theft. You talk about Cisco, T-Mobile, Motorola. There's a long list of American companies that have sued Huawei for stealing their ideas. So I asked the question to him, why should these companies trust them now?
New technologies are highly complicated. Although the U.S. is very strong, it hasn't developed all those technologies yet, so they've decided to pick on us by focusing on some very insignificant issues. We still trust the U.S. courts for their rulings. We are far ahead of U.S. companies in terms of new technologies. Huawei has over 11,500 core patents granted by the U.S. government and has over 90,000 patents that support the foundation of the information society. The U.S. should look more at Huawei's contributions to society instead of finding faults with our weaknesses.
But the accusation is not where you are right now, which is, yes, in fact, a leader in 5G, but that you got here by stealing from American companies.
From the very first day Huawei was founded, we have valued intellectual property and opposed the theft of IP. This is because Huawei is a victim of IP theft, and many individuals in China have stolen our IP. None of our litigation has found that Huawei has maliciously stolen anybody else's IP.
There are reports that have come out over the last few days that suggest that you have significant layoffs over at FutureWay, your R&D arm over in the U.S. What do you see as the future of Huawei's presence in the U.S.?
First, FutureWay is a U.S. company. According to the U.S. entity list regulations, they cannot send any of their R&D results to Huawei, and no employees at FutureWay are allowed to have any contact with Huawei employees. This makes it difficult for us to manage this company and collaborate with them. Before Huawei was added to the entity list, we invested $500 million into FutureWay in 2018 and plan to invest $600 million in 2019. Now, we cannot make any further investment because we are not allowed to engage with FutureWay employees. What is our next step? This depends on the U.S. government's direction.
Just to confirm, there are layoffs at FutureWay, and your R&D center is essentially on hold right now because of Huawei being on the entity list?
Yes. This is all because we cannot engage with our FutureWay employees. If we cannot even discuss their work arrangements, how can they do their work?
Is the operating system one of those big challenges that you see? You recently made some comments about the alternate operating system that you've been developing, not necessarily being made to run on smartphones. If you can't use Android, do you have a plan B?
First of all, I'd like to say a few words about our in-house OS Hongmeng. This operating system powers a lot of Internet of Things applications like smartwatches, smart TVs, and connected vehicles, but for right now, we don't have any plans to apply it to smartphones. Huawei has an agreement with Google, developing systems to adapt to future scenarios like the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, industrial control, and autonomous driving. The latency of this system is no more than 5 milliseconds, and sometimes it's even less than 1 millisecond. We respect their work and the achievements they have made. We will only look into developing our own smartphone OS when Android is no longer an option. But as for now, we don't plan on it.
So it sounds like you're operating under the assumption that Google will get the waiver and be granted a license. Are you in touch with Google executives at all?
No, I have not met with executives from Google, but I believe both of our companies are working hard to resolve this issue. We are working to develop a backup operating system while they are working on communicating with the U.S. government. I hope our efforts pay off.
What about your 5G ambitions? How have you had to maybe change the expectation a bit as a result of those very headwinds you talked about?
No, we have not adjusted our goals for 5G. This year, we are expected to ship out 600,000 5G base stations, which will grow to around 1.5 million next year. our 5G business will not be affected by the U.S. ban in any way.
Okay, so the base stations, the routers, you can continue to make those without any U.S. components.
That's correct. According to our estimations, revenue from our network connection business will drop by 2% as a result of the ban, and we didn't expect our consumer business to be affected more severely. Of course, the drop is a result of comparisons with our goals for the year set at the beginning of 2019. Our sales revenue will still be higher than last year.
I want to ask you about something that I think is quite personal for you, which is your daughter, of course, arrested back in December. You know, you're a father. You've seen your daughter go through this legal ordeal for several months now. What do you think, as a father, as you see what has been playing out over in Canada?
First of all, we have faith in the law. Under the law, we believe the case will be addressed based on facts and evidence. Emotions cannot resolve anything. The case must be addressed by law. As the legal procedure takes a relatively long time, we will have to wait. There is no better alternative.
Do you talk to her often?
When I call her, she sometimes says they're eating hot pot or making dumplings or noodles. She says she was busy with work for decades and rarely had the chance to relax, like she's had in recent months. The only solution is to resolve the case through legal procedures. Such a big international issue cannot be solved through individual efforts.
Wow. Now, Huawei, of course, has been caught in the middle here on the trade war. And I did ask him that now that they're right in the middle of this, would he be willing to sit in on these negotiations if that's what it took? And he said the Chinese should not make any concessions. And if they were to make concessions, that suggests that we did something wrong, and we have not. One more point to make here on the Google thing. We did have a chance to speak to the head of their consumer business, too, who says Google has applied for a waiver to be able to supply the Android operating system. So that's something to look for moving forward.
Now, while you were there, you also were able to speak to some employees. So they gave you a little bit of access there. What were those people saying, especially because I know we've discussed how the company sort of has a lot of internal, I don't want to necessarily say propaganda, but sort of motivating employees, you know, stay strong, we've done nothing wrong, and go Huawei and go China.
Yeah, if you walk around the campus, and this is a massive campus that is European themed, surprisingly in China, but you see this poster that's prevalent there, and it's of a military plane that is riddled with holes. And this is something that Ren Zhengfei has put out since April, I think. He has said that this is symbolic of us, that we are a plane that is riddled with holes from taking all the hits from the U.S., but we will fly in the end. So you see that. In terms of what employees are saying, one of the things that struck me, we spoke with one of the researchers there who actually studied in the U.S., and he said he came to Huawei because he wanted to do cutting-edge research. And he said, look, I'm trying to move forward and continue with my work, but I'm worried that the work I'm doing will make me a target, that I don't know if the work I'm doing right now is considered a national security risk. We asked Mr. Ren about that. You know, what do you say to employees like that? And his answer was, you know, actually, I think he's doing just fine. And our employees are moving forward 100% because we will, in the long term, come out on top, whether the U.S. keeps us on the entity list or not.
A poster with a plane riddled with holes, that is dramatic. I mean, that sounds like wartime propaganda, which, well, we are in. I mean, it's a trade war.
Well, and what's interesting is that he did say that he actually just found it, just browsing the internet. It wasn't something that he had actually sought out, and he saw that plane and he said, that represents Huawei, and that is why you see it all across campus. And he's making that reference every time when he talks about this company.
I mean, not true for some of those employees here in the United States, though.
Right.
Some layoffs.
Because there are layoffs coming.
Right.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. All right, well, congrats on the interview. Good stuff, and thanks, Akiko.